To that extent, on Thursday, you testified during the state's direct examination about the murder of Joe Rod Adams in 2018, correct?
Yes, sir.
And a witness in this case, Robert Howard, known as Kenny Capps, pled guilty to that murder, correct?
Yes, sir.
You also testified about the Town Center murder also in 2018, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that is an unsolved murder, correct?
Yes, sir.
Reminding you again and making sure I'm correct, you also testified about Adrian Gaynor, the murder that took place in 2019, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gaynor was killed by a gentleman by the name of Hakeem Robinson, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Adrian Gaynor was not a documented gang member, correct?
I'm not sure of his status.
He was a close friend of Charles Jones, Julio Foolio, correct?
I'm still not sure. If he was a member or an associate of 6 Block, that would be a better question for the 6 Block detective.
Okay. Are you able to testify under oath that he was a close friend of Charles Jones?
Yes, sir. I'll do it. Yes, sir.
And you and I discussed your interpretation of the rap videos, the drill rap videos that were projected and discussed by the state on direct examination, correct?
Yes, sir.
And during the course of that testimony, you gave your interpretation or your opinion as to what certain portions of it meant to you, correct?
Yes, sir.
The video, Who I Smoke, was performed by Young and Ace, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he was, for the music side, that's 187, right? 187 is the music side of Young and Ace's group, correct?
No, sir, that's not. 187 is associated to 1200 Young and Ace's ATK.
I'm sorry, I made a mistake in my individuals. So that would be Spinabens, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so 187 is the music side or the rap side, the production of music for Spinabens group, correct?
I'm not exactly sure what their record production label would be.
Okay. And also in that particular video performing was Wappa with the Choppa, correct?
Yes, sir.
And also Fast Money Goon.
Yes, sir.
And that was released in 2021, right?
Yes, sir.
In providing your opinion on Thursday, you stated that there is a lyrical reference to Charles Jones, Julio Foolio, being shot in Houston in the song, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that is, as I understand it, an unsolved murder. Excuse me, an unsolved shooting.
I believe so. I'm not exactly sure about
Okay.
Houston.
You're not aware of anybody having been arrested. You would probably know that. It would trickle down to you in terms of your investigation, correct? If someone
Yes, sir.
had been arrested?
Hopefully it would.
Okay. You're not aware of anybody being arrested and prosecuted in Houston, correct?
I'm not.
And you make also a reference in that song to Trey D, correct?
Yes, sir, they do.
Okay. And you don't know whether or not Trey D is a documented gang member, do you?
I'm not sure of his documentation status. I just know that he's an associate of 6 Block.
Okay. And it is an unsolved murder, correct?
I believe so.
I believe that you then talked, or excuse me, testified on direct examination about another rap video, When I See You, correct?
Yes, sir.
And its lyrics as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
That is a video produced and performed by Julio Foolio, Charles Jones, correct?
Yes, sir.
it was also in 2021, approximately 3 years prior to his murder. You would agree with me?
Yes, sir.
In discussing your opinion about that video, you stated that there was a reference to a murder at the town center way back in 2018, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that particular murder is unsolved as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
There's also a reference to the murder of Avery McKnight. He's also known as Suge in 2021, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that reference is relating, I think you testified, to him being on a bike, correct?
Yes, sir.
Detective, in fact, Avery McKnight was killed on the porch of a house, wasn't he?
Yes, sir.
And he wasn't on a bike, right?
No, sir, I don't believe so.
And this would have happened on Odessa and Franklin, that porch, correct? Not a bike.
Yes, sir.
You know where Odessa and Franklin is, correct?
Yes, sir.
You also testified, Detective, about murders after 2021, correct?
Yes, sir.
You spoke about Jaquan Pickens, whose name is Jake Jitt, that was shot on the interstate in 2023, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is also an unsolved murder, correct?
Yes, sir.
You talked about the shooting, not the murder, but the shooting of Jacoby Beals, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is an unsolved murder, correct?
Attempted murder, yes, sir.
Attempted murder, okay. I think you go on in your direct testimony to talk about a couple of others. One would have been of Antonio Tilley in October of 2023, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were part of that. You were called to the scene by Detective Anderson, who was the homicide detective in that case, correct?
Yes, sir.
In that particular case, a man by the name of Jaquan Mills confessed to that murder, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, Jaquan Mills is not a gang member, is he?
Not to my knowledge.
Truth is that this was a contract killing for $20,000 put up by a guy by the name of Paul Nuke Anderson, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Anderson is in prison for 25 years as a drug trafficker, correct?
Yes, sir.
Detective, the gangs and the videos that we're talking about, the subject matter, I think you've testified to, amounts to what you call trolling, correct?
Yes, sir.
And disrespecting, correct?
Yes, sir.
Even at times celebrating, correct?
Yes, sir.
You talked about also, shortly after that murder, was the murder of Tilley, correct? Antonio Tilley?
Sure. I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
So, I'm sorry, you don't understand it because I'd already asked you that. Very soon after Tilley's death, Charles Jones, Julio Foolio, was shot at, got hit in the foot, correct?
Yes, sir.
So that was the consequence, or that was the chronology. Mr. Tilley was killed, and then Mr. Jones was shot, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this also is an unsolved shooting, correct?
Yes, sir.
You would agree with me, Detective, that it's no secret, and in fact, your investigations would indicate that Charles Jones had no shortage of enemies based on his six-block prominence and his disrespect for people that are dead, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Additionally, Detective, drill rapping about a death doesn't mean that you committed a murder, does it?
That's correct.
And being in the production of a drill rap doesn't mean that you had anything to do with a murder, correct?
Yes, sir.
What it is accomplishing is disrespect to that person or the people that care about that person, correct?
Yes, sir.
Or disrespect to the group or the neighborhood for which that person hung around or grew up in, correct?
Yes, sir.
It also is an attempt to antagonize those people who cared about that person, correct?
Yes, sir.
In essence, it is Young and Ace, the rapper, trolling Julio Foolio, the rapper, or Wappa with the Choppa, the rapper, trolling or antagonizing Charles Jones, Julio Foolio, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is done for a number of reasons. It's done for clicks, correct? And
Yes.
viewership.
Yes, sir.
And it's also done for the expansion of notoriety for a brand or a person who is a thriving or established rapper, correct?
Yes, sir.
And to further that person's musical fame, even though certain people wouldn't want to derive that type of fame. That is the case, correct?
Yes, sir.
And all of this talk and all of this disrespect, what most people do like is potentially the money and the revenue that is derived from it. You would agree with me?
Yes, sir.
How many gangs are there in Jacksonville?
Approximately 30.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you, Detective.
Yes, sir. Excuse me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I represent Sean Gathright. Detective, you talked today and last week about you're more focused with the ATK gang, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and in your work and investigation into that gang, you never heard Mr. Gathwright's name, did you?
That's correct.
Okay. And through your investigations and your work, you are familiar with 1200, which is an alliance, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Gathwright's name was not involved in that gang.
Not to my knowledge.
And you also have knowledge of other gangs, specifically Six Block, at a maybe peripheral level,
Yes.
based
Yes,
on
ma'am.
what you do? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Gathright wasn't involved in that gang, to your knowledge?
No, ma'am.
And you just mentioned to Mr. Gonzalez that there's approximately, and we won't hold you to the number, 30 gangs in Jacksonville, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And as far as your work in the gang unit and working with gangs in Jacksonville, you had never heard of Sean Gathright?
That's correct.
You talked last week about there being statutory criteria, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And some of those criteria put somebody as either a member, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Or an associate.
That's correct.
Okay, and Mr. Gathright was on neither of those lists, was he?
Not at the time of this incident.
Okay. Until the time of this incident and the investigation from Tampa, you had never heard the name Sean Gathright.
That's correct.
No further questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Petridis? Detective.
Good morning.
I think you mentioned earlier that the bulk of your knowledge from ATK comes from going through the files of your predecessor and then going on social media. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And social media gives you a lot of information, but I would assume you need to be careful because doesn't have to be all factual information.
Correct.
In these gangs we're talking about, ATK, 6 Block, 1200, there's no real hierarchy in these gangs. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
And there's no general rules or regulations of these gangs?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Are you aware that ATK is a record label as well?
I'm not sure.
Okay. You know, so they may or may not be, to your knowledge, they may or may not be a record label, have an LLC for their music?
Yes, sir, they could. I'm not aware of that.
Do you know when Charles Jones was documented as a gang member?
I do not.
Do you have any idea, any years, months?
No, sir. Maybe a guess would be like well before this incident, but I don't know the exact year or time or anything.
Do you know, the Town Center shooting was a long time ago, about
Yeah.
8 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Charles
2018.
Jones would have been around 18 at that age. Do you know if he was a gang member around that time?
No, sir. I would imagine, based on my knowledge, he would have at least been an associate, and he represented 6 Block. But I'm not sure of his member status and when he actually became a member of the gang.
Okay. Were you aware of him prior to going into the gang unit?
Yes, sir.
And When I See You and Who I Smoke are both from 2021, correct?
Yes, sir.
And they're not, in those songs, they're making fun of people, but they're not specifically taking credit for those murders. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Would you also agree that when they're making fun of someone or dissing someone for those murders, they're mainly dissing the fact that that person is dead, so that the way they died isn't as important?
Yes, sir.
So if they had died, for instance, I know they mentioned Rod Kay or Spaz in a car crash, they may still be the subject of one of those songs.
Yes, sir. They're just making fun of the fact that they're deceased.
And a lot of these, you mentioned, or would you agree that a lot of these shootings that occur in Jacksonville that are involving the gangs are both retaliation and for other reasons?
Yes, sir.
Charles McCormick was shot because of a song, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then we saw the Do It video last Thursday. Young and Ace, you were able to see that he's wearing the ATK chain, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that something he wears frequently?
Yes, sir.
And that's obviously in reference to what you believe to be the gang ATK?
Yes, sir.
A lot of these, the murders we're talking about here today and Thursday happened years ago. Were you aware, and before you were a gang detective, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware of any of these murders?
Yes, sir.
You didn't have any involvement besides the one that we've talked about, correct? The ones, plural.
Yeah, the ones mentioned before.
Correct.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And is it fair to say in a lot of these cases, the witnesses are just uncooperative?
Generally, it's like a 50-50 shot.
And for instance, in Charles Jones, when he was shot in the foot in October of 23, he was uncooperative with police, correct?
To a certain extent.
And is that a main reason why a lot of these remain unsolved?
That and just like lack of evidence.
A lot of the social media and speculation on these songs is a way you were able to claim that these murders are involved in the gang war, correct?
Yes, sir.
In the 3 deaths that Mr. Jones references in When I See You, that was specifically referring to June 5th of 2018, the Town Center shooting.
Yes, sir.
And we don't know, obviously how he got that information, of why he's claiming that, or how he knows who shot them or anything like that, correct?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding.
Sorry, bad question. Obviously, we don't know how Mr. Jones found out about that shooting or what information he has about that shooting, correct?
That's correct.
And the main reason was, again, just them as rival gang members, correct?
Yes, sir.
And all the videos, the drill rap videos we talked about, Isaiah Chance isn't in any of those videos, correct? That
The
we've
ones
seen
we
here?
talked about, no, sir, he's not in them.
Okay. And he's not mentioned in the ones we've talked about.
No, sir, he's not.
And he is, in fact, his own artist, correct?
Yes, he is.
Okay, Judge, that's all the questions I have.
Okay, very good. Mr. Sonardi?
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, Detective.
Good morning.
When did you become a member of the gang unit with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
It'd be the fall of 2022.
22?
Yes, sir.
So these homicides that you've identified, that is, they're identifying it as Gerard Adams, the Town Center murders, Adrian, I think Gaines, also known as Bibby, Adrian McKnight, I think is Shug, and Antonio Tilley, I believe goes by Tilley. Those all occurred, is that prior to you becoming a part of a gang unit?
Some of them did, yes, sir, and some of them have not.
Okay. And so that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are clear, there is no evidence whatsoever or suspicion that Davion Murphy was involved in any of those, correct?
No, sir.